You mean Gigi? Okay, good afternoon. Thanks. Let's give a round of applause for Ishi. I think she gave you some energizing moments. This is the hard hour, ladies and gentlemen, right? So we'll try to make the most to keep you awake. I hope you've been caffeined up or sugared up, whichever you prefer. So let's have a seat, right? So I guess you've seen that we have actually, can I move here? Yeah. You've seen that you have actually a panel of experts here, practitioners, who've been on the ground. So you can reserve your questions later, but it would be interesting to know their battle scar stories, right? So, to start, right, I know that most of you would, and probably the rest of you as well, would have received many notifications on your inboxes, right? Latest trend report, global outlook, etc. So the one that I came across with was the WTW global report, actually on the top 5 financial risks. So number 1 there was regulatory shifts. Number 2 was cybersecurity. Number 3 was new technologies. And number 4 was economic uncertainty. And the 5th was geopolitical tensions. Now, before you all get excited and have your own opinions about the others, what we will be considering first are the top 2 and top 3, cybersecurity and new technology. But it would be good to note that even the regulatory shifts, economic uncertainty, geopolitical tensions, they've actually been ranked as a major risk for FIs because of a lot of technology-related risk as well. So let's get the discussion started. To make this legit, that because it talks about risk, I have to ask this off-ask question. So I would like to ask each of our esteemed panel members, what's your one keep awake cybersecurity risk? So that we can get it all started. You want to start, Kathy?
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, both panelists. Yeah, we have a lot of cybersecurity risks right now, but maybe one very popular is phishing. That's very common among the traders right now.
Okay, phishing. And?
Ransomware.
Oh, okay.
Siguro for from a government agency, that keeps me awake is being the next government agency in the long list of government agencies that will be likely to be hacked.
Okay.
So I think it's really more data privacy and personal information.
Thanks, Ollie. We will all have to pray with Ollie, okay, that doesn't happen for SEC. Yes, Ray?
For me, it's human-based cybersecurity risk, human factors. Because it's not consistent, behaviors are consistent. So I keep trying to think about that, what can happen.
Thanks, Ray.
We'll ask that question the first thing you mentioned. Where do we start?
Yes.
But on these frauds, number 1, and phishing, we had a very exciting start to the year because of the IMSI catchers notified passing the OTP. So that's one. But the most that keeps me awake at night is the needs of creating more sophisticated and creative attacks because of AI. The knowledge level is come down to a very low bar that you have ChatGPT do those stuff.
Correct. So now you've heard it. Phishing, ransomware, the human weakling factor being defaced, right, and hacked, and of course, the increasing sophistication, which really segues very, very closely to how about focusing on that really, really important thing. And I think Roland mentioned that. In the World Economic Forum, Global Cybersecurity Outlook for 2025, they actually talk about that, the increasing sophistication of all of these attacks, including ransomware, right? Because they use phishing, but with voice, phishing, right? To actually gain the endpoints, right? And actually enter through the weakest link, the people, right? Trying to be like IT personnel, checking my credential, etc. So they said though, ransomware, social engineering, AI-powered cybercrime are still the topmost concerns. So with the growing threat of ransomware as a service, what practical steps can the bank take to protect against low-skill attackers? And they're leveraging very powerful and easy to get hold of tools, as what Abel said.
Well, for us, it would still be the basic. Last year, majority of the security solution provider came up with their own threat report or threat analysis for the year. Majority of them identified email as the number one threat vector or point of entry for threat actors or scammers. So they said it's almost representing 80 to 90% of the successful threat or successful attack. So if that's the case, then do your due diligence and securing your email. Then you would have already addressed 80% or 90% of the threat that are coming in. Then you still have to do your awareness. Okay? But awareness should not be limited to seminars, webinars. You need to test your users. They have to be always on their toes. So you have to test if whatever you have mentioned or taught them in seminars or webinars are really sticking. And try to gamify it so that users doesn't get bored with all of your announcement, all of your advisories. So I guess that would be the basic thing that we would be doing.
So really the strengthening the basics, right? Because ransom as a service, right? It's what the criminals are trying to do now. Anyone else has a view on what do you think can banks do for ransomware?
I think one important factor also is, it was mentioned earlier, awareness. So really it's education, educating our clients and educating our employees as well. So we, as I can share, we always have this training and awareness on, training and awareness on what the do's and don'ts are. So like you don't click the link. It's very basic, but a lot are still tempted to always click the link, or sometimes it's like automatic that people will click links. Also, especially on text messages and or anywhere, email, text. So we have to educate our employees and also our clients so that they know what to do and what not to do.
That's right. Yes, sure.
So I'm just gonna piggyback on awareness. So hindi na uso yung Nigerian prince kasi estado ng Nigerian prince. The grammatical errors hindi na rin applicable, diba, because of AI. So my point is, and I agree, number one pa rin awareness. But remember that the content of the awareness is also important. You get bored or ulit, diba? So your choice of the provider of security awareness is also a great factor. Like for us, I'm not gonna name the company, pero kahirap yung mga phishing emails, and I think I failed once or twice because they're also considering the evolution of the techniques, more playing on your emotions. So that's one important factor. Two, because there's AI, we also need to use behavioral-based or AI-based spam or email detection. Kasi hindi na rin madalas nakakakalusot na rin. So we need to kind of like fight fire with fire. They're using AI, and the best is also to use AI to detect.
Right. Now this is going to be very interesting because later I will ask you where do you stand. Do you think AI is really going to work for the offenders or the defenders? Right? So let's take a look at that. Now, having said that, I think Abel touched on the point, right? So awareness is there, education is there, but they're evolving and quite fast as that. So how then can organizations prepare now for the future, where cybersecurity risks are increasingly actually becoming more adept, I think, and evolving due to technological capabilities. Right? Like the use of AI, cloud computing, blockchain, quantum computing, etc. Any thoughts on that, perhaps, Ray?
Yes, so one of the basic things that we always still push for is basic cybersecurity hygiene. So the usual acceptable use policy, right? We need to review if it also includes the use of AI tools, or if it can also help the organization prevent something that we call shadow IT, right? Because before it was unauthorized installations or unauthorized connections, but now employees who want to be productive, they want to use AI tools to pursue their business objectives, right? So that's cyber hygiene. We still go back to what we have right now and just put it in the context of covering what's out there, like AI, cloud technology. Another layer would be in terms of human factors. As mentioned earlier, emails, this is one attack surface. But nowadays, when it comes to the capabilities of AI, it also leverages on using different messaging apps and other attack surfaces like email invites or calendar invites, right? In forms of calendar invites, in form of messaging apps, or sometimes it's just the basic survey forms, which can be easily copied from how other companies do it. Legit marketing companies, legitimate other companies who provide service to their clients. So those two things would be something that we can look into for risk management when it comes to these technologies.
Ollie, do you want to add something on the technologies?
Yes, siguro from our side, looking at SEC is going head on into blockchain as a way for, among other things, document and sufficient authentication and signing. So our consideration of blockchain is really the forefront of what's driving some of the technology initiatives from the SEC. And I think as Catherine mentioned it earlier, is some of the things that you need to be ready for use, to be ready for these advances in technology. Some of it is really basic stuff that will really get involved now. Awareness. At the SEC, we're committed to actually doing a lot of our technology in-house. We don't want to trust it to a third party because they won't be on the hook for it, right? Which goes back to us knowing everything about our network at the basic level. I'm not so sure these days how cybersecurity professionals that are churning out have a solid background in, for instance, networking. How do you segment networks? What are routers versus switches? What are the different ISOs, CPIP layers? Because a lot of that will be solved with, or can provide solutions for preventive measures in the first place. Even segmenting your network into different zones based on priorities. For me, that's the real zero trust, is really having those network protocols down pat and in place, because traffic won't cross if it cannot through a network pipes or device. So for blockchain, still things are the same in a way. And going into risk mitigation strategies, a lot of it will be, I think, this year has taught us with blockchain that a lot of it has to do with retaining the risk. Especially with, say, 51% attacks that have been successful, civil attacks, eclipse attacks, these kinds of attacks. Blockchains are immutable. So the best thing that can happen to you is if your blockchain network gets hacked, is it will fork. And someone has to foot the bill and accept either one of those forks and make a choice, but you retain that risk moving forward. So I guess with blockchain also, going back to basics, most of the blockchain hacks that we've seen, compromises we've seen, aren't on the blockchain networks themselves. They're at the points of interfaces between providers. So I think the other thing that we have to start looking out, and this is from our regulatory point of view, is for people to work together. sige, it's fine that you protect your own backyard. But as soon as you're crossing into somebody's yard, that point of weakness is there. And that's where we need to strengthen bilateral agreements between blockchain networks where regulators can help security, compliance, and the quality levels for those types of agreements.
Interesting. So even though the technology in itself would probably be a good defensive mechanism, right? It's still the policies and the connections. It's not just third-party risk, which you're all familiar with, right? But there's fourth-party, right? The vendor of your vendor. Sometimes that's where what AI are they using, and therefore that's the entry point, right? And even I think, interestingly, I think CrowdStrike gave a report. They said that from 62 minutes, it's now down to 48 minutes just to break out for ransomware, right? For instance, that's what they did. And the shortest breakout time was 51 seconds. So it's actually getting more, I think they're getting more expert, right, about this thing. So, yes.
If I may just add, going into crypto, which is, I really won't say more than this, but siguro for recovering from scams on crypto and things like that, if you look at it with all these companies offering solutions, it's really back to the basics. How do they deal with or try to recover money? It's really following the money wherever it goes. And if you can siguro consider it, is that empowerment, having the speed of getting that much money from you, you can turn it around. So going back to the basics of following the money, but using technology to follow that money. So some of it is basic practices, things that will work, but it's how we use technology to make it more efficient in the same way that malicious parties will do the same.
Just like what they earlier said, right? It's back to the basics with more. It's like a plus, right? Because it cannot be just the same. Same old insanity, right? So it actually has to get better and better and better, right? So given all of that things that's happening, what do you think are the cybersecurity policies and frameworks that a BFSI should have in place to mitigate this risk? Because on the one hand, you like to try new things. On the other hand, the adoption without proper, governance would also spell trouble, right? So I'd like to get your view on this. Let's ask both that.
There's no shortage of of frameworks and prescriptions. So, coming from banks and digital banks, I think BSP has done a yeoman's job on staying updated and current with the technologies and trends. So that's one. And, we have to follow that. but in terms of frameworks, I don't know. I'm a very big fan of the CSI, Critical Security Controls Framework. Even though there's a thing we call fog of more, because there's so much. 27 secrets with PCI, DSS, and all the letters that you can think of.
And numbers too.
And correct. So your critical controls kasi is pragmatic, dati 2018 na lang ngayon. Now practical prescriptions on how to implement, tama si Ryan, yung basic cybersecurity hygiene. And I can't overemphasize enough rin yung sinabi ni Ollie, going back to the basics. Essential nyo lang din kami kasi yung firewall namin, router lang. Ginagawa namin filtering through rules. So, and we were talking earlier, we're just kind of saddened that today, the fundamentals are lost. Actually, are being lost. Because sometimes I sleep at night and I try to think, ano kaya yung kabataan ngayon? Would they ever be able to see a router or a switch or a firewall? Because, like for us, we're cloud native. But the only time you see that's through a console. It's like having to touch a firewall. And we don't have data center in the office. So again, not overemphasizing, but highlighting the importance of fundamentals.
Thank you. How about Kathy? Am I
Yeah. Well, it was also mentioned that BSP has a lot of regulations. And as banks, we are always and we must always comply with all the regulations. That's why whenever there's an issuance, we make sure that it is cascaded properly and whatever asks or whatever things that we need to do, we are really doing it on time, and also as the perpetrators are really becoming so very much improved right now. We always have to be one step ahead. And we should also learn from the experiences of other companies, of the events that are happening, so that we know how to secure our technology, our systems, so that it also will not happen to us. So, meaning to say, we have to always ensure compliance first, because we don't want to waste the income of our company paying penalties and also losing our reputation because of things that would happen to our bank if we don't maintain security.
Pag tinanong po lahat ng mga error na nakaupo dito ngayon tsaka nandyan, isa na sa isip namin currently, FASTA.
We'll get into FASA in a bit.
Actually, I think as a regulator, that's top of mind.
Yeah. Everyone's kind of excited and confused also at the same time. But we'll go into that a bit. Yes.
Just one thing I agree with Abet. There's a lot of frameworks available. But our chief goal is, we look at BSP. What does BSP use? What were the references that BSP use? So at least we're assured that come audit time, we would be compliant. But you need to be careful. You have NIST, etc., etc. You need to be careful when you communicate to your users. NIST, which is more like governance, yes, you can use it to talk to management, to the board. But when you're talking to your user, most likely they will be overwhelmed over NIST. So you really need to go down to the level that matters to them, that they will understand. And also, when you refer to a framework, take note that not all of those items applies to you. It would still depend on your setup, your operation. There's such a thing as complex and not so complex bank. So you have to go through it and pick what is important, pick items that matters to BSP for compliance purposes, and also pick items that matters to you and that directly relates to your operation and setup.
Indirectly, sinabi na po ni Roland yung dial namin. So the key is, you pick the simplest one and you map those with the BSS.
Yeah. Okay, wanna add something?
Maybe just briefly adding on to what was discussed. So there are a lot of standards and frameworks available. Yun nga, ISO, CIS, NIST, NIST. But if you have a good standing with DSP and the audits that have happened in the past, and you want to grow out further your standards, which would have like your actual controls, the framework behind it, right? That is correct. You don't have to get everything in one go. There's the approach as if it's a buffet, wherein all the standards can be mapped. You taste one, and more or less it's already mapped to the other controls that CIS would say, NIST would say. Or you treat it like a fine dining approach. You try to figure out first your basics, then expand further the related controls, and pick much more higher level or much more more complex controls from those standards that actually would matter for your company, for your bank. So those approaches can give you a way in explaining to the bank that yes, there are standards and frameworks, they're available, but we cannot do magic and apply them all. It needs to grow as we grow like how we grow as a bank.
If I may add, Gigi, as SEC, we're actually trying to provide, not so much for banks, but for also fintechs, SMEs, guidelines for cybersecurity practices. We're actually toying with the idea of having submissions based on cybersecurity practices. And the way we try to approach it is exactly that. It's how you communicate it in a way that makes sense. Kasi how can you talk to SMEs about NST or ISO or and that also as well as using a risk-based approach. What are you protecting? Is it commensurate to the security measures that you're putting in place and things like that. So hopefully we'll get some traction. Right now we've heard these guidelines for publicly listed companies, but we're working on SMEs and small.
Thank you for that. So you see, it's all, thank you again for letting us know the practical approach to that. And I can't avoid it with my risk hat, right? It's good to know that there are really many frameworks. It's still good to educate ourselves with that, as they all said, right? But the minimum is what are the things that your regulators would be looking after. That's a minimum no matter whether you're simple, large, complex, etc., right? And then as both Roland and Oli said, what is your organization's goals, right? And where are you at? You have to take a look at that very specifically, right? So that you can map, as what Abed said, how to go about it. Don't just remember what Ray said, buffet lang and fine dining. Let's remember we're talking about the frameworks here, right? So again, if we talk about that, because that's a bit of planning, mapping it out, right? Let's consider now to probe deeper, right? How do we then do things differently? Like from the very, very start, from the get-go, how can, like for instance, a security by design approach be helpful for all the FIs here who are going through different phases of their digital transformation? And Roland, you want to start on that?
Well, I hope that everyone has already adopted it. That security must be part of the design. It cannot be an afterthought anymore. And in terms of testing your application while you're doing development, there's already a lot of references. You can use the OWASP. It's already identified 10 most common security risks in application development. So while you're developing, you can already test your application against that. Because if you do it after you have done the application, it's going to be more expensive, time-consuming, and you will end up with an application that will be running 10 times slower than when you initially develop it. And most likely you will be requiring invest additional hardware because now you have to put a lot of things around it, adding to the load, and you need to compensate by putting resources. So it has to be part of the design. And when you do development, you do testing, not at the end, not in the middle. You need to compartmentalize and do testing as early as possible. So that by the time you reach the end state, you will have a comfort level that you have a ready application that you can release out there and most likely will be secured from common threats.
Sir, blocker ka daw kasi nag-APT ka, dami mong reklamo. Ayaw mo na-release.
Ray, you want to add on that?
Okay. Yes. Maybe just adding on the human factor, aside from that, which is very important, then later on you also can look into the human factors because there's this behavior model called the FOG behavior model, which is behavior is equals to motivation, ability, and prompt. So a human behaves in such a way. And if you apply the approach of security by design, you can actually design the experience of your employees or your customers, actually even your regulators and the oversight organizations for your companies and banks. So you can design the motivation that your employees can have. You can also modify the skills and ability or what prompts them or triggers them to behave in such a way. So one example is HR would be experiencing or behaving differently from finance and accounting. One would be more open to how employees operate. One would be more, let's say, controlled, structured because they work with financial information systems and then financial reports. So you can design how they experience and how they will experience security. And eventually they will be promoters of how to secure your information systems.
Alright. So I think really that's a very important thing. When we talk about your offerings or your products, right? It should be built as part of the product already. Like I think earlier in the talk there was an example of that, right? That you cannot look at the banking screens unless it's really your face that's in there, or like when the phone doesn't have a passcode, right? So that's actually part of the design, where it's already built in as part of the product. So having said that, earlier you also heard somebody say that to build faster, I think they built in less than a year. They stacked up technology existing from different partners. So having those non-banking financial services institutions, right? They used to be just emerging, but now they're actually here and they're in the market, right? So how can a BFSI institution collaborate with FinTech to create more secure, resilient digital solutions that will at least be satisfactory, if not delightful, for the customers? Let's ask one of the digital banks.
That's a very good question. Well, in terms of course, the interaction, we all know it's almost APIs nowadays, right? So we're going to start with prevention or security in the API. Also, if this happens a lot, like when you're a bank or a digital bank, any bank for that matter, you have a partner or an institution or organization or a merchant wants to partner with you. You have to write some data rules, kind of like an asset. That's like top of my head. Was the last VAT report. Of course, notwithstanding all the other stuff that risk has, like financial risk and everything. And then you have to adapt to your framework or your minimum security requirements, like how does the authentication happen, what type of encryption do you use, are you encrypted in transit, in storage or statics, what's your development, security development life cycle. There's a whole lot of questions, but beyond the attestation, I think there should be some actual, really strict due diligence. And this actually ties up to the question earlier. I'd like to make mention of the local start of what we call threat modeling. If you really want to embed security, do it on the time of conception. So decide na lang. Perform threat modeling. And threat modeling is not technical. It just analyzes the threats. And then from those threats that you discover, then you feed you technical requirements, security requirements, and not just security requirements and then pitfalls, pros and cons of the application itself. So I think that's the most artificial embed besides the IAST, DAST, and the shift left and all the fancy names down to the which again, nice not to go about it.
That's right. So actually, it's if I can simplify that in terms of sentiment, it's excited but cautious, right? So hindi agad bibigay sa first date.
Second now.
Hindi ko alam, prescription nila yon. But, so that's quite important. They must abide, by your own, rules. Yes,
Siguro, another shameless plug from our regulator. I can see a lot of banks, they try to access our interfaces for companies to check if they're existing, what's their status, if they have secondary licenses and whatnot. So we have a website for that, we have a mobile app for that, but we also have an API for that. So you can actually build all those things to your systems. Siguro, they like the customer because it's less friction. They don't need to provide you paper anymore.
Yeah.
So, baka something might be checking back with your regulators or compliance that you have to look at because it's not all about spanking hands. We try to help also where we can by providing that. So those kinds of services that get meant for fintechs, and yung mga those with not the full stack, at least you can have that sort of security. In much the same way that BFSIs can. So,
Yeah. I think the regulators in the Philippines, correct me if I'm wrong, are quite very open to helping us move more nimble, right? But at the same time, provided us with guidance. So it's always good to make sure that's never forgotten, right? Speaking of which now, therefore, to get to that, because we partner with fintechs, there's a lot of AI solutions, right? In that World Economic Forum report, they said about 2/3 of the organizations all over the world think that AI in cybersecurity is a game changer, right? But then only 37% are actually able to have some sort of governance, like before actual use. So let's tackle these two things one by one. Firstly, the AI-driven solutions are currently in use to prevent fraud. What are they? And how effective are they in mitigating risks? Anyone here would like to talk about it?
Well, okay. First of all, AI is really great, but it's not infallible. Remember, AI depends on the data that you feed to it. So if that data is skewed, then you have the problem of bias results, even hallucination. So that's why there's this term in AI now is called human in the loop learning. So don't entirely trust AI last stock and barrel. There still has to be some reading, validation that has to be involved. Like when I was getting all the FASA Mafasa, and then I heard, oh, there's this segment in BSP called the GAPO, which will supervise that. So sabi ko sa AI, so where is the word GAPO in the law? And it said, it's in section something, this. But when I read the law, wala naman to be. Wala sa BSP regulation. Sabi ko sa AI, but it's not in the law. Kinesumagot siya, you're right, it's not in the law. So, you get what I'm saying, right? I know it's easy to trust AI because it really gives out very eloquent, nice-looking statements, but human in the loop, please validate it as well.
can I make a qualification on it? I totally agree with that. But humans in the loop doesn't mean na may isang kawawang tao that will have to go back and compute everything by hand. There are, as part of data science, things that you can check as for significance, pair t-tests, nag-uumpa for results, guys. Alam ko ito yung thesis ko ng college, kasi yun for significant results that you can actually test and also refine your models, say every now and then, run some sort of principal component analysis just to see how fit your model still is. Kasi as you haven't mentioned, AI is the model of what you train it on is what matters. Actually, after a while, I'm looking at possibly a trend in the future where it's not so much the AI, but the learning, the model you can actually capitalize on in terms of revenue. Possibly if you could have adaptive models being applied, say, from Google to finance or things like that, because of
So
the
many
learning.
possibilities. Ray, do you have something you want to add on that?
Yes, just on the side of the qualitative side, because on the cons, it does help fraud management. But let's see, in parts of AI is something that we can also leverage on when it comes to social engineering that is combined with business email compromise, phishing, and the actual fraud itself. Sometimes it can also help us describe what we need to, let's say, look out for, so the descriptive part. It helps us predict what we should look out for with our email systems or with the ecosystem of let's say Google Workspace or M365. And also the prescriptive side of things, that it helps us automate what we already want to, pass the buck on to the technology that can help us be more efficient. So when it comes to fraud management, that's also something that we need to align with what are the critical risks that we cannot actually solve manually, or because there are always human errors, or because of the lack of the resources we have. Maybe we can ask our current providers, whether it's our email systems or storage or cloud technologies, do you have something that can describe what I want? Do you have something that can predict what I want? Do you have something that can prescribe to me, or I can help automate because I only have 2 people under InfoSec? Or it's just me. You know? Sometimes that's the scenario. So even with the banks such as myself. So that's something that can also help us on the qualitative side.
Thank you for that. Sorry, Kathy?
Yeah. I mean, coming from the compliance side, before we automate or before we develop anything, we have to know the regulation that would govern that particular aspect. For example, if we're developing something or we're creating a product, you have to know the regulations first and make sure that at the very onset, we already know which ones will apply and which ones we should follow so that we are sure that we are compliant on the regulation side. And then, of course, when we partner with the different providers, because right now it's more on competition, collaboration between fintech and banks, and more particularly digital banks. I also came from a digital bank. So, with that, we have to really choose the right partner that suits our needs and also helps us protect our house. It's like you have a house without a fence, so there's no protection. But if you have a house and you have your fence, you have your controls in place, you have all the risks identified, and you know what to do, and you are protected. And of course, the technology would really be very helpful for us and for our business as well.
And would you say it's the same set of technologies underlying it anyway, right? Whether you use it
Yes.
for sense or you actually use it for managing it, right?
Yes, of course.
Yes. Oliver,
Yes, joining through AI. I think siguro just illustrate before deepfakes, very recently, the main combat against deepfakes were liveness checks. And that's actually the things that in some instances it's been overtaken by deepfakes. But yun nga, parang kami that goes to show na what AI is that arms race na. But just because ma-overtake na si liveness check is we should be started. That sort of siguro rigor should be applied to existing technology to strengthen it, rather than to say na wala nang liveness check. So it's AI and AI, and AI versus AI, and then we should siguro be prepared for the pitch battle when it comes to technology.
so what I'm hearing all of you saying is that you have to be adaptive and flexible as the technologies grow and evolve. So must your risk management, right? Because it's using the same emerging technologies, correct? Roland, you wanted to ask something?
I remember before the launch, there was a session. There was a statement on AI. I think it was the lady who mentioned it. She said the learning would really depend on the quality of your data. So garbage in, garbage out. So if your data is not good, then what will the AI learn? Also, we're so enamored by AI, sexy kasi because puso siya eh. But right now, the type of AI right now that we've been playing around, remember the answers that you get is only as good as your question. So if you're, I think one of our CISO colleagues mentioned this, friends from RCBC, sabi nga niya before artificial intelligence, we need to make sure there's human intelligence. So if you don't ask intelligent question, you won't get intelligent answer. So remember that when you're playing around with your testing AI, don't expect that it will give you all these beautiful answers. And it will not answer all of your problem. It will really depend on the type of question and how you ask the question.
Thank you. I think that goes into the point that I wanted to now ask each one of you because I know it's one of the threats also for FIs. Really that we know technology touches everything, right? From talent to the cyber itself, to the supply chains, the number of vendors, geopolitical risk, who is the spying from who, right? But how can the BSFIs actually approach the training and upskilling of your internal teams who handle cybersecurity challenges in this world where, it's so complex. Every day there's something new. Somebody did this, Google did that, Microsoft did this, etc. May I know your take from that? Like, how will you do that? Can we hear from each one? Very quickly.
Well, it's a challenge. Maintaining and keeping talent. But personally, how I approach it is you need to keep them interested. And you need to guide them. As Gigi mentioned, there's new technology coming out almost every week, every month. You need to provide that guidance on that they don't go into a training and train it as a science project. Like they have to be guided that whatever training that they will be undergoing would obviously needs to benefit the organization. But you really need to do continuous training. If not, iiwanan kayo.
There is updating ourselves. We started with network security, and there's application security. And imagine this, we climb like a cloud, there's microservices, containers, APIs, right? And you have to study the security for that. Now comes AI, so AI security naman yun. What about, and quantum computing is starting again. Now we're thinking, gosh, we have to have our encryption to be quantum computing proof now. Certificate is happening. So it's really a never-ending field of study. Sometimes I don't know about it, but I go sit and think like getting too old for this stuff. Kasi dati, you're like a sponge, but then now, second page na lang yung libro, parang inato ka rin. So going on, well, that's the point. We have to nurture the next generation of information security professionals. They have all the tools now, all the information in their fingertips. Kailangan pumunta na library, bumili, imported na libro. And it's just really, really amazing. So we need to start nurturing those. And not just feeding them technical information, technical training, but the guidance is very important. The morality and the ethics involved in using it. I had one of my niece came to me and says, Uncle, I want to hack.
Hacking is special.
Hacking is something na cool. Dati mas sexy hacking kasi yung AI is sexy. So those non-technical, very important factors we need to look at.
If I may probe deeper, so dati, it was always like centers of excellence, diba? Do you believe that that's still the way to go with AI, or is it going to be like role-based AI where everyone has access depending on, but the type of access is depending on their role in the work? What do you think? How does that change training and upskilling? Yes?
I would see it more as a role-based approach, and at least with the companies I worked with before and where I work for now in Epicom, because I also try to help on privacy as well with other companies in Epicom. Because I used to be a psychiatric nurse before, computing was a hobby of mine, but I really got interested into it in the end. No? So what I did was how I make my teams interested in learning more about AI is the concept of introspection, meaning you have to know what you're really interested in and what you really are. So I have a person in my team who's really interested in security operations. One is handling GRC, and they really love how they do it through and through. That's their interest. So come AI, also we had discussions on what are the trends right now, what's available to us with the current vendors that we have. So that's where I let them explore it first. right? What are the features that we can maximize or invest on additional modules? Because that still keeps them have that interest. At the same time, I also inject there, oh, maybe this is something that there's a tool that can probably help privacy in your families, with your wives, with your kids, those who play Roblox and use a lot of resources in their mobile apps, right? There are tools out there when it comes to AI that can actually augment to protect their children as well. So when it comes to AI, that's how I give them the opportunity to upskill and learn something in their personal life, something who they are. At the same time, it's something that is still connected with their jobs and roles.
Thanks for that, because really cyber talent is one of the risks identified, right, for BFSI. And on the flip side, and I just want to cover all of those, the customer, in terms of trust, right? So if you think about that, I know in the UK there's the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act. It will take effect by September, supposedly, where it's an offense if the corporation had the failure to prevent fraud, right? Which comes into effect, right? So the new regulation will increase the accountability of the org. So in that sense, the BFSIs, right? Preventing fraud within their operations. UK in particular has a level of standard of care that they say. Usually they pay the consumers to get victimized, right? So for you guys, what do you think? In the Philippines, what regulations do you feel would help the BFSIs to help us navigate this complex situation, the days that we're in right now, given these?
Well, Apit already mentioned it earlier. So the word is AFASA. So that's the Anti-Financial Accounts Scamming Act. That's the Philippine version of the UK law. It was approved and passed into law last July 2024, and we expect it to be fully implemented by June or July this year, because it only gave the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas 12 months to come up with the implementing rules and regulation. And that discussion has been going on for quite a while. I am actually the representative of PNB in the Bankers Associations of the Philippines Cybersecurity Committee, and also in the technical working group that is trying to come up with a so-called industry protocol. This is the Financial Industry Protocol to address one of the key portion of the AFASA law. AFASA actually gives the banks some flexibility. Right now, without that law, if let's say a customer gets defrauded, a bank will not be able to share information to another institution in case you know where the money went, because you have bank secrecy law, you have data privacy law. The AFASA law actually exempts or gives some leeway in terms of sharing information. The objective of the AFASA law is parang hot pursuit. The moment you report an incident or fraud incident, you get defrauded, protocol will kick in, wherein your bank now needs to immediately investigate and coordinate with the receiving bank. So that is AFASA law. Actually, it was the PAP who initiated this law. It started as an anti-mule law, but then it went through Congress, I think two Congress. So obviously they have to add things. So it almost became a human trafficking law. But fortunately, those provisions were taken out. But it's something that hopefully would help customers, particularly victims of fraud, in terms of at least running after the fraudster. And the hope is actually to be able to recover some monies. But the challenge is, and I'm using the Malaysian approach in terms of handling scam, is hindi pa siya ganun ka-automated. Unlike in Malaysia, if you try to read about how Malaysia handles cyber scam, the Malaysian government took the initiative of sponsoring an interconnected system, create an event in one financial institution would be immediately flagged, and they will be able to track it in minutes in terms of where it went. So there's an alert that it can be stopped or at least put on hold. But right now, APASA will be starting mano-mano. So yun naman lang, that's the impact naman to the bank. Since it's mano-mano, then obviously we need to have like a 24/7 who will be on standby, receiving complaints from a customer, and acting immediately to be able to share information. And obviously, the more critical part is avoid paying for the loss of the customer. But it doesn't exempt the customer from practicing common sense. Again, do not share your OTP. The bank will never ask for OTP. There's no such thing as converting your points into cash because that thing is still working apparently. So that is coming. And I think the D-Day is going to be either end of June or this first week of July. Because the exact date when it was approved was, I think, middle of July.
So you need your 12 months, right?
It's going to be a lot of work for the banks actually.
Any other regulation that you think would be relevant?
Yeah, siguro from our side, not just for financial institutions, but really for mutual protection, mutual protection, SME. For lending, we have citizen lending app, things like that that can be placed. I think regulation-wise, at least for us, try to be very democratic about it. We usually release some MCs, memorandum circulars or comments first. So those come to mind, CBA, apart from FASA. I was going to say the other thing is it's not regulation or legislation, but it's a regulatory practice. Because I think the best things that are coming out from us and the BSP is for fintechs and neobanks, the financial institutions, sandboxes. Thinking that yung sa amin is modeled after the UK regulatory sandbox allows for new financial products to be tested in a controlled environment. We have a controlled environment before it's released.
I see. What about the concept of AI model cards? So that developers can share, they know the expected results, organizations can assess the specs or something like that. Is that something that you think might be helpful? Because I heard that the US, for instance, put a moratorium on their AI thing already. So far, at least they're going to put it up and set. But for us, we don't have it yet. But what do you think would be helpful given everyone's doing adoption, right? AI tools. Any thought on that? Do you think there's a regulation necessary or?
Well, there was one event, I think the first quarter, the head of the technology risk director was invited to speak on AI. And the statement actually from BSC is that there's already a lot of, regulation that would be touching on AI. And according to him, what the BSP plan is to consolidate or at least reference this existing regulation and identify the gaps. Then that's where the BSP will be filling in yung gaps on the existing regulation, and they will be coming out with a circular at least to guide the financial institution on how to adapt and implement AI.
I've been to a congressional consultation on the AI and there are lots of considerations there. I think consensus with the people I work was with is we need to strengthen the transparency of AI models and how they operate and strengthen the power of and explore the reachability of humans in the loop.
Yeah, I think that's, and I'm sure if we start the conversation now about agentic AI, we'll have another rabbit hole we're gonna go to. But I hear you, that's good. It's kind of tough really from what the bank side, the non-bank side, the regulators to balance, right? How do we spur the use of AI for continuous innovation so we don't get left behind, right, or be surprised? At the same time, how do we therefore protect, at the end of the day, the people, right, to maintain their trust with us as a banking institution? So let me pause at this point so we can take some questions from the floor. Your experts are here, battle scarred and ready to answer. Any question from anyone? Did you fall asleep already? I hope it was interesting for you as it was for us. So, questions from the floor?
Feel free to raise your hand so we can hand over the mic for your question. Sila sa lens. Hey, feel free to take this opportunity to talk with our industry leaders or these experts right here. If you'd like some clarification or you'd like to hear their insight on a specific topic, feel free to raise that question.
I guess, oh yes, thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Janice Mata from Uno Bank. I was referring to some comment earlier on about the cost of using AI, right? So for smaller organizations, they want to use it, but they cannot afford it. So how do you see that cost in the near or further future? How can smaller organizations afford AI, but still, as you mentioned, data is the foundation, the qualitative data coming into the AI engine. So how do you think that could benefit, or do they need to benefit? Do smaller organizations need to benefit from AI?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, you're from Uno Bank. I was also from Uno Bank. Yeah, but actually, earlier someone mentioned that we think what is needed, like whenever there's new technology, we also evaluate whatever we need and what suits us best, right? So, for example, yes, it's expensive, but first and foremost, we have to choose whether we would like to spend now or suffer later on. Because we have to take it as an investment, a wise investment. We have to invest wisely in technology, but we have to choose the right technology to use that will suit our company and our needs. And also something that would really ensure that we are safe and secure and that we are protecting our bank and our clients. So at this point in time, yes, it is expensive, but we also have to evaluate the benefits that it will give us in the long run. And maybe that would be much better. The benefits that we'll have will be more, would benefit us more and would be more cost effective for us rather than think of it as an expense. So think of it as an investment that would secure you and secure the bank and also secure our clients as well.
Yes, well, speaking for smaller banks, as a part of a savings bank, it's the same thing I said earlier, wherein you look at your current systems right now, like operating systems, your productivity speeds, and see what are the challenges of your business units. Because sometimes these providers, especially operating systems right now, like Windows and Apple, they already are trying to put a value proposition for you to stay with their operating systems. Meaning they want to label something as AI, so you need to check if it's really AI, or they actually have features powered by AI that you can leverage. Sometimes, or often, for free. So you can start with there first and see if it works. Now, if you don't necessarily have to go outside and have other providers or vendors, but if there are much more efficient providers out there, or much more secure, which is very important, then that's when you can do the battle card or comparisons already and invest on them in the future. At least you already tested this works, this AI feature works, AI powered tool works, but I want something much more secure, or at least a provider that respects my security needs.
Anyone?
We just had a meeting with, Goldham's a very young organization, probably, if not the oldest, one of the oldest, so it's the Gen Z millennials. And at that moment, I think that we're very lucky because we have the type of people that's really, into technology and AI. So my response said, the risk of not using AI is actually greater than the risk of security. Of course, that's a discussion. But the thing is, as I pointed out, the benefit outweighs the risk. Having said that, it doesn't mean that we just let everybody use AI. If you really want to dive into AI, there are free, AI for individuals mostly. But the thing is, we really need to look out for as an organization is a very common concept is the data leak prevention. Yeah. We don't want your personal data or client's data be uploaded to a public AI. And I think that's where the benefit of subscribing to an AI with some amount of expense is worth it. They have enterprise isolation, meaning your data, your personal data, or whatever data you put into that base subscription stays within that enterprise. So that's actually one of the major concerns. But just to dive into it, I mean, as after there was only I said earlier, DeepSeek is free for individuals. So you can actually start your journey there. I mean, productivity-wise, notwithstanding, not putting in personal information or critical information, it's so easy to get into it.
Did you get their answer? Yeah? So I think what they're trying to really say is there are many ways to avail yourself of what's out there. I think one of the salient points that they did say, and I think Kathy hyped from that, to choose which one you would use it for, right? I think if there's a process where it will break if you don't use AI, maybe that's a good starting point, right? So I think that's something we can consider. Any other questions from the floor?
With a room for one more question. Would like to gather from them.
Hello, my name is Ludwig from Philippines today. So my question is, in the push towards hyper-personalization, how are banks ensuring data privacy without compromising user experience?
How are banks pursuing data privacy without compromising the experience?
Well, there's a realization now. No? Before we said, okay, we need to remove friction, we need to make this faster, we need it to be seamless. Okay. But fraud cases in 2023, 2024 have shown that type of approach is also being taken advantage by the scammers. You don't need an OTP, you don't need this and that. So it makes the life of the scammer easier. So there's now a realization that yes, we need to put those frictions, we need to put those pause, at least to give a chance to the user to realize, tama ba itong ginagawa ko? Bangko ba talaga yung kausap ko? Meron pa talaga akong inaasahang package from DHL. So those kind of things. And this is where we try to use AI also. Obviously, hindi mo naman pwedeng papagalin yung process. This is where we try to use AI and machine learning. Try to learn as much as possible in terms of the patterns of the habits of the client. And hope that that would help you identify whether is it really the client doing the transaction or a scammer who already taken over the cost of the client. But again, I think even the regulator, I'm not sure if you know, there was even one suggestion that you put a holding period on, a 24-hour holding period on fund transfer. But then there's another signal saying, oh, you need to make it, as fast as possible, but within 24 hours. So those are the learnings, and this is where AI, machine learning will come in. Hopefully, they will give us try to recover that speed and try to lessen the friction that we are forced to introduce to help and guide the client, no, and in terms of for them to realize tama ba kung hindi ito ginagawa.
That is a very hard question because we have InfoSec knows that the more security controls is inversely proportional to stability. So the more controls you put, the slower things become. And finding that right balance is really, really tough. But the short answer to that question is we have no choice. We have to up our game. We have to think of new technologies, new ways to get into hypersonization because are really good topic actually. That could be a different topic altogether. How much you have now, you have excess money, why don't you invest in it, or you're late in your payments, it really opens a lot of opportunities for financial institutions. But to go there, we have to up our game, improve security. What would be like discard SMS OTP once and for all, because that gets intercepted. So we have to maybe make biometrics a norm and not just an option. So things like that. That's a great frontier that we want to go into, but yeah, we have to analyze what we have, see what technology is available out there, and improve on it. There can be no hyper personalization without any increase or without any guarantee or just a level of guarantee to our clients. Yes, we're getting more information from you, but we're also putting in more security tools.
Yes,
I think there are certain things in terms of technology that are geared towards, if not guaranteeing, giving the user back the power on what they can disclose. Technologies such as self-sovereign identity, ganyan. Given an example lang, if you're going to a dentist, why do you need to give them all your medical records, including, for instance, your reproductive health, data? You should have that choice. Digitally, if you're going to a dentist, dental, yung bibigay ng data. So I think we're looking into those kinds of technologies as part of hyper-personalization to have that sort of choice platform in place. Parang open platform that's you can segment as to what data and how long they'll have it for, who can have it. So it's a blockchain coming to play.
I think so. What I've been hearing you say is that a lot of people varied yung what situation it is, right? But we need to be close to what experience they like because there are already technologies out there, right, to help with that. I hope that answered your question, sir. So do we still have time? No more. Okay, so we don't have. So let me close. Again, it is our reality right now, whether we like it or we like it very much, right? That financial institutions will continue to have to navigate and face a very complex and dynamically changing risk landscape. It's heightened by uncertainty and continuous shifts, not just for regulation, but even in technology usage, right? By understanding, therefore, and addressing the top risks, including the regulatory shift, the cybersecurity, new technology, economic uncertainty, geopolitical tensions, all of us here, the organizations, can enhance our resilience, right? And our adaptability. It's quite, for me, it's a very operative word. I think they have proven that with their own stories and narratives to you, that we need to be adaptable constantly. AI is the genie that we can no longer put back in the bottle, right? So our esteemed panelists have all pointed out to what? Proactive risk management, they all cited that. Nobody said you cannot not plan for it. Continuous monitoring is important, they said from the start till at every point, and planning as critical to create all of those working paths, right, for these challenges. So if organizations like us remain aware and constantly improving and flexible, we will be better positioned, right, to seize the opportunities and still maintain stability amidst all the uncertainty and what we can continue to expect to be more changes, right? So we have as an industry opportunities to explore with respect to orchestration, collaboration, right? And so with that, I hope you all had your interesting takeaways from this afternoon's panel discussion. Let's please give a round of applause for our esteemed panelists. We wish you all a very good afternoon. Thank you.